Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Studio Hours. I'm your host, Hannah. I'm one of the co-founders at Oak Theory. We are a creative tech studio, and we get to work with a lot of amazing mission-driven organizations. And within that umbrella, some really, really great nonprofits. And today's episode is specifically for our nonprofit leaders and marketing teams, CEOs, director of marketing. If you are focused on donor relationship and fundraising, this episode is for you. And some context before we dive in. We are almost at the end of 2025, and let's just say as it is, it's been a tough year. It's been rough. There's been a lot of funding uncertainties this year, political shifts, obviously, DEI language restriction, and we just know firsthand, hearing from our nonprofit partners and clients, how challenging this year has been to readapt to in terms of messaging changes and repositioning for fundraising efforts. And while we ourselves are not a nonprofit, we've also definitely felt the impact of the shifts this year as one of the few women of color owned and founded tech studios. So we understand to an extent just what a challenge this year has been. But for this episode, I want to focus on what we do have control over and go over what's working right now and what's continued to work sustainably over the past years so that we could focus on what can we do today. And we'll share some key takeaways you can start doing right away to strengthen your donor engagement and any other marketing efforts you have upcoming in the new year. All right, first things first, transparency is non-negotiable. I think we all know this already. Within the last decade, there's been a huge shift over how consumers engage with brands, how donors engage with nonprofits. Donors want proof. And according to NP Tech for Good, about 75% of donors look for concrete information about a nonprofit organization's achievement before they give. And so what this means is glossy mission statements and obviously even legacy household names, they're not enough anymore. Everyone's demanding more transparency. And we live in a world where there is, let's say, investigative journalism really being on social media. And donors want receipts. They want to see what's actually happening with their dollars. And the good news with this is that, especially in our world of social media and authentic marketing, people don't expect perfection. They're not looking for the most curated experience in terms of how their donor money is being spent. We are seeing that donors respond very positively to more imperfect, real updates than to overproduced and polished reports. Like, for example, one of our partners, they sent a more messy behind-the-scenes update with photos from the field as they were getting ready for their annual report. And donors loved it because it was a great casual touch point. It reminded them that they were being kept in mind and there are bigger updates coming. And so as political language shifts and it comes and goes, what we know to be true time and time over again is authentic values and proof of impact that's going to endure over the different seasons. So our tip would be communicate results often, even if the story doesn't feel perfect, because transparency builds trust and long-term loyalty. And a reflection question for you, if you're listening to this today, is how often are you communicating impact outside of big campaigns? And what can you do that may be lower quote unquote production, but a higher touch point to keep your donors engaged? Next up, we'll talk about email and how that's still outperforming social. So let's talk about channels. Everyone's obviously chasing visibility on social media. It is very important in our world today. But when it comes to actual giving decisions, email is still king. Bloomerang reports that 48% of donor prefer emails for updates, 33% say it's the channel most likely to inspire them to give. And that's huge. So for example, do you remember when we were all doing fundraisers through Facebook? It was definitely having its moment back in the, couple of years ago. But Facebook's charitable giving tools generated only 0.2% of online nonprofit revenue in 2024. And that's down from 1.1% in 2023. So obviously social media is very powerful for reach and brand awareness, but it serves more as a springboard to giving than being the final destination for final transaction. So going back to the initial point of why does email work? Because it feels direct and personal. It's right in your inbox. And a donor is far more likely to click on donate from an email than to stop scrolling on Instagram to go find your donation page. So, our tip would be invest in consistent and compelling email marketing, segment your list, alumni, new donors, volunteers, major givers, and make sure that you're personalizing your message so that it really centers and make sure that it's centering on every appeal on impact. What is the impact of giving? Going back to point one, people want to see how their money is being used, right? So making sure that you're centering the stories on impact. And from a UX standpoint, which is what we specialize in, make sure it's easy. Make sure it's insanely easy for anyone to donate with 1 to 2 clicks. So here's a reflection question I'll leave you with for this point is if I opened your last donor email, would it feel like it was written for me or would it feel like it was written for everyone? Make sure that it feels personalized. An email is a great way to do that in an easier way. Now, the power of storytelling. More than 70% of people say that they are more likely to donate to a nonprofit that effectively uses storytelling to communicate its mission and impact. And so ultimately, what's proving most effective in 2025, as it has in previous years, as we see the trend of direct marketing on social media and email marketing is a story-driven content that is authentic, emotional, and delivered in mediums donors spend time on is king. So practical examples would be thank you clips, supported testimonials, field updates and articles, any way to showcase authentic storytelling. Our tip would be use video to show donors the real impact of their giving. You could keep it short, real, and human, right? We're in the world of TikToks and Instagram Reels. It doesn't have to be over edited because you can really repurpose clips and make it short form for a platform like Instagram and TikTok. And it's already a format that we're used to in our society today. And it's not about perfection. Again, it's about authenticity. And another small tip would be if you haven't, check out a program like CapCut. The AI features on these programs are now crazy, right? They have AI features now to edit and clip for you the highlights that might feel the most impactful for your customers. It's crazy. It's really great. And now it's super accessible. A reflection question for you here is if someone asked your donors to explain your impact, will they be able to picture it? That's a good question. Going into fundraising in our era today. So let's zoom out to digital fundraising in general and how we can bring more storytelling concretely through something like an annual report, for example. According to NP Tech for Good, online donations now make up 13.4% of revenue for small nonprofits, 8.3 for midsize, and 4.1 for large organization. And that number is only increasing year over year. And so the organizations that are adapting faster to making their donor journey frictionless are going to be the ones that are going to gain more traction in terms of donations. So what this means is optimize giving pages, mobile-ready campaigns, recurring donation options. And this is where we spend a lot of our time and our expertise with our nonprofit organizations in terms of the services that we provide, right? So I would say audit your donor funnel. Is your donation page easy to use? Is it mobile friendly? Is it seamless? Are you asking for recurring gifts when you have the touch point? Our supporters find the donate button in 1-2 steps, no matter where they are on your website, email, or social media. Because here's the reality, and I've experienced this personally, and I'm sure you have too. You stumble upon a great cause or even a great brand, and you want to get involved one way or another, but it's super challenging to get to the point of signing myself up or to donate or to connect. And even when I get there, the UX experience doesn't feel, let's say, professional. So I'm not even sure that this is going to work. And so you just want to make sure that if you're putting all the investment in telling a great story, curating great content, that the call to action to connecting or donating is really, really seamless for your customers. So donors might be willing to give, but if the process is clunky, you'll lose them. And it also reflects back to them on whether you're prioritizing their experience on your site. And so if you could do one thing this quarter, I would say test your own donation funnel as if you were a first-time donor and see where you get stuck. Or get someone else who is not really on your site or email to audit and give their feedback on their experience with your site. And finally, let's talk about annual reports. So I'm talking about reimagining reports as microsites here, because traditionally, annual reports have been compliance documents, right? And we know them through physical reports or PDFs. They could sit in inboxes or a shelf. When I get annual reports in my inbox, I do love to read them. And so I'll try to print them out and have them at my desk. And I want to get to them at a certain point to understand how my donation is being used and how the company and the organization has grown over the last year. But the best nonprofits that we are seeing are reimagining these compliance documents. And so if you're going to have to create an annual report every year anyway, the question is, how can you make this opportunity to create more compelling marketing assets with it? Like, why not take the opportunity to make it more dynamic? Microsites, they are landing pages essentially that can be customized to be more dynamic and within the parent site. So they could be more engaging. You could play around with the brand a bit more, have more fun with it. They're also super easy to share. So because microsites they're a link, right? Versus a PDF or a physical asset. They can combine storytelling with data in a way that really builds trust, and that could be more interactive. You could take a look at organizations like Feeding America and Girls Who Code, who are already doing this really well. And these digital reports now allow nonprofits to combine storytelling with more design and more engagement. So instead of pages of just text, microsites, they're organized into sections that highlight key accomplishments. We could do impact stories and financial with engaging layouts, expand and collapse. And nonprofits you could also embed videos into the site. So there's a combination of both reading and audio and visual that can show testimonials, interactive infographics, and animations. All of it to drive your story and make it easier and more engaging for your donors to emotionally resonate with your story and your annual report. So at our studio, we've worked with nonprofit organizations like 1 Million Degrees, shout out to OMD, to transform their reports into a microsite experience. And the difference has been night and day in terms of how donors and sponsors engage with it. And unlike a PDF that people download, what we can do in terms of the data with a microsite is amazing, because we can drive stronger engagement metrics, and we can also see how donors are interacting with click-throughs, playing videos, where are people stopping to engage, where are people kind of scrolling past. And all of this data and analytics is something that we can now use to inform our future messaging and views. So our tip would be reimagine your annual report as a marketing tool, right? Not just a compliance document. A well-designed microsite can really double as a fundraising asset and build trust with your platform long-term. And it's much easier to share for donors and supporters to share than a PDF. So I'll leave you with our last reflection question. If you sent your annual report to a potential donor, would it spark engagement or would it just sit unopened? And also, which one would be easier to share out to gain more traction with more supporters and donors? So let's wrap this up. Let's bring this all together. Here are the key takeaways for this episode. Communicate results often, even if they are imperfect, because transparency is what builds trust. And I will say, in our world of AI, imperfection and having a more human raw edge is what will build trust, because we are now getting used to this world where everything feels like a perfected output. 2, invest in segmented, impactful email marketing. I know email can always become a second priority. I understand it as a founder myself, but we know that it works. Email is where donations happen versus social. Social is great for brand awareness, but make sure that your email campaigns are consistent. Use authentic video and storytelling to connect with donors. Audit your donor funnel for seamless giving experience. Make sure it's easy for anyone to want to click and give. And lastly, reimagine your reports, whether that be your annual report or a sponsorship event you do where you create reports. Can you make an annual report more of an interactive microsite where it can continue to live on your site. It could be easily shareable. And also, lastly, where you can gather some user data on what type of messaging is working and where people are engaging in. So to wrap this whole thing up, so the nonprofits that will continue to thrive in the next years aren't the ones who are going to be chasing new trends, but they're going to be the ones who are doubling down on clarity, transparency, and digital first engagement, and those that always keep the stories of the people that they're servicing at the center of the work. And if you want to see how you can potentially level up your annual experience this year or storytelling, check us out at our nonprofit service page at oaktheory.co/nonprofit-organizations, or just reach out to us through hello@oaktheory. And thank you for tuning in. I hope this was helpful. And if you are listening in as a nonprofit leader, drop a comment below or email us with your insight and what you're seeing in the market. And if you've done the microsites, how they're working for you, and any new learnings that you've had from this year. Would love to stay engaged with our listeners and trade information as much as possible. Thank you for tuning in. See you in the next one.